Namaste. Welcome everyone to our study of the uh, Diamond Sutra. Now we are coming up with this next series called as the reading of the Diamond Sutras and other sutras. This process of learning is a very important practice in Shunya, wherein a sutra is read, only plainly read, and allowing the sutra to simmer within your own consciousness so that it starts then breeding within you, and then through that your wisdom starts cultivating. It's a practice, and we are now starting this practice of reading the sutra. And to start with, the first one is Diamond Sutra. Before that, we quickly get our mind in focus so that we have the complete attention when we are practicing the reading method of the sutras. So let's start our practice of 9. Okay, so the Diamond Sutra, as it is a series of special effort work that was done by the SIF translation team. It was the first of the sutras that we started. In Sanskrit, it is known as the Vajra Chedika Prajna Paramita Sutra, as it is. Now, here we're going to follow certain spellings that are going to be very specific with the Shunya University, and this is where we are not going to use the double vowels when it's not necessary to just strengthen the word or pull the word. We're going to keep it phonetically easy for us to read. Okay, so here this is translated to Chinese from Sanskrit by Tripitaka Acharya Kumarajiv, translated to English from Chinese by Dhyanacharya Nagajiv. That's also known as our own Dr. Lim. Okay. There is no attempt at interpretation or any explanation of the sutras by the translator. So, this is a disclaimer, very important disclaimer, because this is not a commentary. This is a pure translation as it is. Authenticity of this translation is because Dr. Lim is from the Chinese, education system. He knows Chinese. He's read Chinese. He lives in a community where Chinese people are, and he is a Chinese. So that's how this becomes very authentic for us to get a translation from him with the right meaning, because he's well versed with English also, and that is why this English translation is the perfect and the closest that we can get from the Chinese translation. And remember, Kumar Jiva was well versed with Sanskrit, but he spent a lot of time with the Chinese, so he is also the authorized person to get the right translation from Sanskrit to Chinese. So we have a very strong lineage here for the translation. To start with, I'm going to start reading. Thus have I heard. Chapter 1. Event leading to the assembly. Once the Buddha was in Shravasti at Jetavana Grove, Anathapindika Park, with an assembly of 1,250 great monks. Before mealtime, the Bhagwan put on his robe, holding his bowl, entered the great city of Shravasti, from house to house to beg for food. The Bhagwan then returned to the retreat, took his meal, put away the robe and bowl, washed his feet, and arranged his seating, and sat down to focus his mind and meditate. Okay. Hmm. Okay, chapter 2. Inquiry from an elder. At that time, the elder Subhuti from the great assembly arose from his seat, uncovered his right shoulder, knelt on his right knee, clasped his hand in respect, and asked Buddha, how rare is the Bhagavan? The Tathagata is skillful in endorsing all bodhisattvas, skillful in teaching the bodhisattvas. Bhagavan, when a virtuous man or a virtuous woman wishes to attain the state of Anuttara, Samyak Sambodhi, how should they focus their mind and how can they control their thoughts? The Buddha said, excellent, excellent Subhuti. As you have stated, the Tathagata is skillful in endorsing all bodhisattvas, skillful in instructing the bodhisattvas. Now listen, and I shall explain to you how a virtuous man or a virtuous woman who wishes to attain the state of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should focus their mind and control their thoughts. Yes, Bhagwan, I am glad to listen. Okay. The Buddha instructed to Subhuti. Okay, there's a correction. The Buddha instructed to Subhuti. Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas should control their thoughts as follows. All types of beings, whether born from eggs, from wombs, from moisture, or by transformations, whether they have forms or are formless, whether they have thoughts or are thoughtless, have non thought nor no non thought. I shall lead them into perfect nirvana. And when these immeasurable, countless, infinite number of beings have been liberated, in actuality, no being has attained liberation, as all beings are name and form and just illusions. Why is this so? Subhuti, if a bodhisattva attaches to the name and form of self, people, beings, or existence, then she or he is not a bodhisattva. Furthermore, Subhuti, while practicing dharma, the bodhisattvas, when giving alms, should not attach to the form. This is called giving alms without attachment to form, and giving alms without attachment to sound, odor, taste, touch, or thoughts. Why is this so? If bodhisattvas give alms without attachment to forms, their merits are immeasurable. Subhuti, what do you think? The space in the east, can you measure it? It is immeasurable, Bhagwan. Subhuti, are the spaces in the south, west, and north, the intermediate directions, the zenith and nadir, measurable? They are immeasurable, Bhagwan. Subhuti, similarly, the merit received by the bodhisattvas who give alms without attachment to form is immeasurable. Subhuti, the bodhisattvas should follow this teaching to focus their mind. Chapter 5. The real form of Buddha. Subhuti, what do you think? Can one see the Tathagata by his bodily forms? No, Bhagwan, one cannot see the Tathagata by his bodily forms. Why is this so? The bodily forms taught by the Tathagata are not forms. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all things that have forms are false and deceptive. If you see all forms as non forms, then you see the Tathagata. Chapter 6. True faith is rare. Subhuti addressed the Buddha, saying, Bhagwan, will there be beings upon hearing these words and sentences believe it to be true? The Buddha said to Subhuti, do not say so. In the last 500 years after my passing away, those who practice moral discipline and cultivate merit can have faith in these words and accept them as truth. You should know that they have not merely planted virtuous roots with one Buddha, two Buddhas, three, four, or five Buddhas. They have planted all kinds of virtuous roots with countless of numerous thousands of Buddhas. Any being, upon hearing these verses and sentences, will give rise to pure faith in just a single moment. Subhuti, the Tathagata fully knows and fully sees these beings shall receive countless merits. Why is this so? These beings no longer attach to self, people, beings, or existence, nor do they attach to dharma or non dharma. Why is this so? If these beings are attached to names and forms, then they will cling to self, people, beings, or existence. If they attach to dharma, they will cling to self, people, beings, or existence. Why is this so? If they attach to false dharma, then they will cling to self, people, beings, or existence too. Therefore, one should not attach to the dharma nor the false dharma. Based on this understanding, the Tathagata always says, monks, my teaching is like a raft to be discarded upon the shore. Even true dharmas should be discarded. How much more so the false dharmas? Okay, the apostrophe S will not be there because that is very specific. This will be dharmas with an without an apostrophe S. Okay, same is with Buddhas. I've just marked it. We'll do the correction. Chapter 7. Tathagata teaches no teaching. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? Does he teach anything? Subhuti said, from my understanding, there is no fixed achievement called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and there is no fixed teaching that is delivered by the Tathagata. The bodily forms taught by the Tathagata are not forms. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all things that have forms are false and deceptive. If you see all forms as non forms, then you see the Tathagata. Avi, 1 minute. This chapter is again. Okay, 1 minute. This is double printed. We were continuing with chapter 7, right? Tathagata teaches. Okay, so the last sentence was Subhuti said, from my understanding, there is no fixed teaching, fixed achievement called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and there is no fixed teaching that is delivered by the Tathagata. Why is this so? The teaching of the Tathagata can neither be taken nor described in words. It is neither a dharma nor a non dharma. How is this so? All the sages have different approaches due to not attaching to any teaching. Chapter 8. All Buddhas spring forth from this sutra. Subhuti, what do you think? If a person were to fill a Trisahasra Mahasahasra Lokadhatu with 7 kinds of jewels and give them as alms, wouldn't the merit attained by this person be great? Subhuti said, extremely great, Bhagwan. Why is this so? This merit has no nature. Therefore, the Tathagata just mentions it is great. The Buddha said, but if a person just practiced 4 lines of verses from this sutra and taught it to others, the merit would exceed that of the former. Why is this so? Subhuti, all the Buddhas and the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi spring forth from this sutra. Subhuti, the so-called Buddha Dharma is non-Buddha Dharma. Chapter 9. Form is not form. Subhuti, what do you think? Can a Stroto Apana think, I have attained the Strota Apana? Subhuti said, no, Bhagwan. Why is this so? Because Stroto Apana means stream enterer, but there is no one to enter. One does not enter into form, sound, odor, taste, touch, or thoughts. Just by name, one is called a Stroto Apana. Subhuti, what do you think? Can a Shakradagamin think, I have attained the Shakradagamin? Subhuti said, no, Bhagwan. Why is this so? Although the name Shakradagamin means go and come once, there is no one going or coming. Just by name, one is called a Shakradagamin. Subhuti, what do you think? Can an Anagamin say, I have achieved the Anagamin? Subhuti said, no, Bhagwan. Why is this so? Anagamin means no return, but no one is non-returning. Therefore, just by name, one is called an Anagamin. Subhuti, what do you think? Can an Arhat think I have attained the Arhat? No, Bhagwan. Why is this so? There is no such thing called Arhat. Bhagwan, if an Arhat should give rise to the thought, I have attained the Arhat, this would mean that he is attached to self, people, being, or existence. Bhagwan, you have said that I am the most proficient of all the Arana Samadhi practitioners, and that I am the Arhat free from desire. But I never think that I am an Arhat who is free from desire. Bhagwan, if I were to give rise to the thought that I have attained the Arhat, then you would not have said of me that I enjoy the practice of arana, since there is in actuality nothing for me to practice. Therefore, I am called Subhuti, the one who enjoys the practice of arana. Chapter 10, Adornment of the Pure Land. Pure land will be changing into clean land. Okay, the Buddha said to Subhuti, what do you think? When the Tathagata was under Dipankara Buddha, did he gain any dharma? Bhagwan, when the Tathagata was under Dipankara Buddha, in actuality, he gained no dharma. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a bodhisattva adorn the land of Buddha? No, he does not. Bhagwan, why is this so? Adornment of Buddha land is not adornment. Just by the name, it is called adornment. And so, Subhuti, the Bodhisattvas, the Mahasattvas should give rise to pure heart in this way. Their heart should not attach to form, should not attach to sound, odor, taste, touch, or thoughts. By attachment to nothing, the pure consciousness arises. Subhuti, if a person is with a body as large as Mount Sumeru, what do you think? Would this body not be huge? Extremely huge, Bhagwan. Why is this so? Buddha said, it is non-body. Just by name it is called a huge body. Chapter 11, Merit of Teaching the Sutra. Subhuti, if each grain of sand in the Ganges river represented a Ganges river, would the total of grains of sands in all the Ganges river be great? Subhuti said, extremely great, Bhagwan. Even though the number of all the Ganges rivers are countless, how much more are the grains of sand? Subhuti, truthfully, if a virtuous man or a virtuous woman filled numerous Trisahasra Mahasahasra Lokadhatu equal to the number of sands in all the Ganges rivers with 7 types of jewels, then gave them away as alms, would their merit not be great? Extremely great, Bhagwan. The Buddha said to Subhuti, if a virtuous man or a virtuous woman can even memorize any 4 lines of the verse from this sutra and teach them to others, their merit will be greater than the alms giver. Chapter 12. Respect the true teaching. Furthermore, Subhuti, by reciting this sutra as much as any 4 lines of verse in any place, the place would become like a shrine for humans, devas, and asuras to pay offerings to the Buddha. How much more, if so, one could completely memorize and recite this sutra? Subhuti, you should know such a person has accomplished the rarest achievement. Wherever the sutra is kept, the Buddha and his most revered disciples will be present there. Next chapter, chapter 13, naming of the sutras. Subhuti, when asked the Buddha, Subhuti then asked the Buddha, Bhagwan, what should we call this sutra and how should we practice it? The Buddha said to Subhuti, this sutra should be called the Diamond Prajna Paramita. You should memorize this name. I think we can keep that as Diamond Sutra / Vajra Chiddika. Prajya Paramita Sutra. Okay, you should memorize this name. Why is this so? The Prajya Paramita taught by Buddha is not Prajya Paramita. Subhuti, what does this mean? Does the Tathagata teach anything? Subhuti said to the Buddha, Bhagwan, the Tathagata has nothing to teach. Subhuti, what do you think? If the Trisahasra Mahasahasra Lokadhatu are crushed into dust, are the dust particles great in number? Subhuti said, extremely great, Bhagwan. Subhuti, the Tathagata says those particles of dust are not dust. Just by the name they are called dust. The Tathagata says worlds are not worlds. Just by name they are called worlds. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by his 32 bodily signs? No, Bhagwan. One cannot see the Tathagata by means of his 32 bodily signs. Why is this so? Because the 32 bodily signs taught by the Tathagata are no signs. Just by the name they are called as 32 signs. Subhuti, if on the one hand a virtuous man or a virtuous woman sacrifices their life as numerous times as the sands in the Ganges river for the welfare of others, and on the other hand there is another person who memorizes as few as 4 lines of the verse of this sutra and teaches it to others, the merit received by him is greater than the former. Chapter 14, free from all signs. After Subhuti heard this sermon and understood it deeply, he was moved to tears and said to the Buddha, "How rare it is, Bhagwan, that you have taught this profound sutra. Since the time I attained the eye of wisdom, I have never heard this sort of teaching. Bhagwan, if someone hears this sutra and has pure faith in it, he or she will see the true signs of things. We should also know that this person will obtain the rarest kind of merit. Bhagwan, these true signs are not signs. Just by name, the Tathagata calls them true signs. Bhagwan, having heard of this sutra, I have no difficulty to put my faith and to grasp it. If during the last 500 years, whosoever hears this sutra and has faith in it, understands it, and grasps it, then this person will be most rare. Why is this so? This person will not attach to self, people, beings, or existence. Why is this so? Because the sign of self is not a sign. The sign of people, of beings, and existence are also not signs. Why is this so? Those who are free from all signs are called Buddhas. Then Buddha said to Subhuti, "Yes, you are right. You should know that if someone hears this sutra and is not shocked, scared, or alarmed, this person is extremely rare. Why is this so? Subhuti, what the Tathagata calls the main Prajna Paramita is not the main Prajna Paramita. Just by the name, it is called as the main Prajna Paramita. Subhuti, the forbearance Paramita that I teach is not. Now, here we will also spell Paramita with double A, or we'll have to change here. Okay. Subhuti, the forbearance paramita that I teach is not forbearance paramita. Why is this so? Subhuti, in a former lifetime, my body was cut into pieces by King Kalinga. At that time, I was not attached to self, people, beings, or existence. Why is this so? If at that time my body was being cut into pieces, I was attached to self, people, beings, or existence, I would have felt hatred towards Kalinga. Subhuti, I also remember that in the past, during my former 500 lifetimes, I practiced forbearance as an immortal. At that time, I was detached from self, people, beings, or existence. Therefore, Subhuti, the Bodhisattvas should distance themselves from all forms and arouse the aspiration of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. They should not arouse the mind while attaching to form, attaching to sound, odor, taste, touch, or thought. They should arouse the mind so that it attaches to nothing. If the mind attaches to something, then it is not real focus. Therefore, I say that the mind of the Bodhisattva should not attach to the form while giving alms. Subhuti, to benefit all beings, a Bodhisattva should practice giving alms in this understanding. The Tathagata teaches that all forms are not forms. He also teaches that all beings are not beings. Subhuti, my words are true. They are real. They are as it is. There is no lie and no dissenting. Subhuti, the dharma that I have attained is neither true nor false. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva practices giving alms being attached to dharma, it is like a person in darkness who cannot see anything. If a bodhisattva practices giving alms not being attached to the dharma, it is like a person with eyes wide open in sunlight, seeing all kinds of forms and colors. Subhuti, if in future a virtuous man or a virtuous woman who memorizes this sutra and recites it, then with my wisdom I shall fully be aware and see that this person attains countless and limitless merits. Chapter 15, Merit of Practicing the Sutra. Subhuti, on one hand, if a virtuous man or a virtuous woman sacrifices their bodies numerous times equal to the number of grains of sand in the Ganges in the morning, and in the middle of the day sacrifices their bodies equal to the number of grains of sand in the Ganges, and at the end of the day sacrifices their bodies equal to the number of grains of sands in the Ganges, and made these sacrifices of their bodies in this way for immeasurable hundreds and thousands of billions of kalpas. And on the other hand, if there were a person who heard this sutra with unchanging faith, the merit of this person would exceed that of the former. How much more so in the case of person who copies it, memorizes it, reads it, and explains it to others. Subhuti, in summary, this sutra carries inconceivable, immeasurable, and unlimited merits, and the Tathagata teaches it to those who wish to practice the superior way, to ride on the supreme vehicle. Any person who can memorize, recite, and widely teach this sutra to others is known by the Tathagata and is seen by the Tathagata that they will receive innumerable, immeasurable, unlimited, inconceivable merit. They are the carrier of the Tathagata's Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Why is this so? Subhuti, those who are content with inferior teachings are attached to self view, people view, beings view, and the existence view. Such a person is not able to hear, accept, recite, and teach this sutra to others. Subhuti, wherever this sutra is found, all the humans, gods, and asuras should come and make offerings. Such a person should be equally known as a shrine where all should venerate, circle it respectfully, and offer aromatic flowers around the place. Chapter 16, Cleansing the Bad Karma. Furthermore, Subhuti, if there is a virtuous man or a virtuous woman who memorizes and recites this sutra but is belittled by others, it is because of the bad karma of the person in his previous lives which he has destined to suffer from. But by enduring the disparagement of others in the present life, the bad karma from the previous lives can be removed. And finally, he can attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, countless of Asamkhya kalpas ago, before the advent of Dipankara Buddha, I have encountered 84,000 billion of countless Buddhas, serving them and making offerings to them without lapse. If there is a person in the final era who can memorize and recite this sutra, this person's merit will be 100 times, 100 trillion times, an incalculable number of times greater than the merit that I gained from offerings to all these Buddhas. Subhuti, if I elucidate thoroughly the merits to be gained by a virtuous man and a virtuous woman in the final era who memorizes and recites this sutra, there may be some who, upon hearing this, develop mania, doubt, and disbelief. Subhuti, you should know that as the meaning of this sutra is inconceivable, so are the merits also inconceivable. I think that's 16 chapters for today. We will keep the next 16. That's a 32 chapter series of Diamond Sutra. We'll do the reading tomorrow. So we will split this up. There are a few corrections that will go into the final print. This is the series that we are doing so that we are also proofing it for the printed book series that is coming up very soon. While we are reading, if you also find some kind of flaw, it will be appreciated that the whole thing that humans do err, we are still humans, and if you find something during this process reading, you can definitely let us know. We will try to incorporate that change also into it. So again, thank you so much. We'll end the session here.